As gardeners, we've all spent money on garden supplies in an attempt to either improve our gardening, improve our seed starting, or to solve a problem that we're having in gardening or seed starting. And much like a golfer who constantly changes his clubs to try to improve his golf score, where the problem of his low score is his golf swing, we can do the same thing in gardening by wasting money on things to solve a problem where the root cause actually lies somewhere else. So today, let's talk about 5 ways to save money when we're starting seeds. Hi everyone, my name is Riley. Today we're on my DIY patio. Today we're going to talk about 5 ways to save money when we're starting seeds. And I've spent the last 3 decades of my life either designing or managing processes with an eye on eliminating waste in those processes. And one of the ways that I've been able to do that is by looking for redundancies in the process. And I took that same approach over the last several years as I fine-tuned my seed starting process. And I want to share some of the things that I've learned with you today about what we need and what we really don't need when we're starting our seeds. Let's get right into it. All right, item number 1, and this is sure to raise some eyebrows. Item number 1 to save money when we're starting seeds is there is no need to purchase and use seed starting mix. Seed starting mix is a sterile combination of peat moss or cocoa coir and vermiculite. And the vermiculite is just expanded rock. That helps to actually retain moisture, and it also helps with airflow in the seed starting mix. And the peat moss and the cocoa coir provides a sterile medium from which the roots of that plant can begin to grow through. It's very light and very fluffy, and it's very easy for those roots to grow through this medium. The redundancy that we have with using seed starting mix like this is there are no nutrients in seed starting mix. It's a sterile mix most of the time. And our seeds that we start, those seeds have enough nutrient to take the plant from a seed stage up to where it has its first set of leaves. And when I say the first set of leaves, that's not the first set of round leaves you see on your seedling. Those are called cotyledons. But the second set of leaves is the first set of true leaves. These are the first set of leaves that will utilize photosynthesis. And at this point in the plant's growth, it needs to start to take up nutrients from the soil. But our seed starting mix has no nutrients. So at this point in our seed starting process, we have 2 options. One would be to add liquid nutrients to feed these seedlings, or the other would be to transplant up into a potting soil that has nutrients in that potting soil. And that begs the question, if I have to pot up into a potting soil, why can't I just start with potting soil to begin with? And the answer is you can and you should. Now, before I did this video, I Googled, do I have to use seed starting mix? I wanted to see what came back as the results. And I want to read to you the little quote that came back on the top of the Google research page. And it said, "Not everyone needs seed starting mixes. Some gardeners do very well starting their seeds in potting soil. This often saves the work and stress of transplanting. But if you need sterile soil because of mold or fungi pressures, then seed starting mixes will really help." And the key point there is mold and fungi pressures. And I want to talk about this a little bit because the mold and fungi can lead to the dreaded damping off. And if you don't know what damping off is, I'm going to paraphrase Craig LaHoulier now, the author of Epic Tomatoes, where he once described it as you go out to your beautiful tomato seedlings. Yesterday they were great, they were 2 inches tall, and you go out to them in the morning and they're all fallen over like a mini Paul Bunyan has come out and chopped them all down. And that's a perfect description of what it looks like. The damping off caused by the mold and fungi and the disease it creates in the soil constricts the stem right where that stem is coming out of the soil or the soilless mix, and that seedling will topple right over and die. And it's a really depressing thing to see when you're a gardener. So whether you're using seed starting mix or you're using potting soil, in my experience, the best way to prevent that is to make sure when you're starting your seeds, you have an oscillating fan on low 24 hours a day, constantly sweeping over the top of your seed starts. This allows constant airflow across the top of that soil and will help to prevent any mold or fungi issues, whether you're using this or you're using potting soil. And redundancy 2 that I want to talk about is for plants like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants, where we grow these for 8 to 10 weeks before we transplant into the garden. We have to transplant and pot these up anyway into a larger container from our seed starting cell tray, our 6-cell tray, into a larger pot before we do the final transplant into our garden. But for other plants that we grow, and let me use bok choy and spinach as an example. For these, and they take 3 weeks, maybe sometimes 4, before they're at the size where I like to take them from my 6-cell seed starting tray, pull those out of that tray, and transplant them directly into my garden. For these types of plants, if we use soilless seed mix, once those first true set of leaves appear, we're going to have to either transplant into potting mix before we transplant into our garden, or we're going to have to feed it with liquid nutrients until it's big enough and healthy enough to be transplanted into our garden. And that's another redundancy that we eliminate if we just start with potting soil. Well, folks, that's the end of part 1. This video is running a little bit long, so I'm going to break this into 2 parts. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and please share it. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified next week when we publish part 2 of 5 ways to save money when starting seeds. Thank you for watching.